Hi, I'm Laverne Cox, and I want to talk to you about the first time I saw myself reflected on screen. The first story that made me feel like my identity was really represented on screen had to be Cayne in Dirty Sexy Money in 2007. What's so sad about that is that I was 35 years old when this moment happened. What was amazing about Cayne, she was the first openly transgender actor to have a recurring role in a primetime television show. That was historic for me.
I am a living, breathing testament to the fact that nothing, and I mean nothing, is impossible.
I've been studying acting for years, not getting any headway, wondering if it was even possible for me to have a career as a trans person. And then all of a sudden, Candis was doing it on television. And that gave me such a sense of hope. It literally changed my life. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that moment. But then when you think about the role itself and the storyline, I don't know if anyone remembers Dirty Sexy Money. It was about this family called the Darlings. And they were this rich family that got into all these kinds of scandalous things. Candis's character, her name was Carmelita, was dating Billy Baldwin's character, Patrick Darling, and he was a state senator and he was married. And she was a mistress in trans.
I hate being a secret.
I'm married and running for Senate.
I can't help how I feel, Pat.
And at that time in my life, I was about a year into a relationship with a man who would never publicly claim me, a man that I thought I loved at the time. And I thought, did I really love him? And I did. And so I was in a and I had so many experiences as a trans woman. By 2007, I was 9 years into my own transition. And I had so many experiences of dating men who, were sort of powerful and had privilege according to, society standards, who wouldn't claim me publicly. And that storyline really hit home for me. And Candis was and is so beautiful. The way she was styled on that show. I mean, Candis's hair is legendarily always perfection. And she was dressed impeccably, and she was so dignified. I knew Candis from the club scene in New York. I'd gone to her shows for years. Candis was a huge inspiration for me early in my transition.
You always know just what to say.
I think when I was a kid watching Images, I never saw myself. And so I would sort of wonder if I needed to be someone else or act a different way so that I could be on television, so that I could, live the life that I'm living now. And Candis made me believe that I could be exactly who I was and have the career and the life that I wanted. And here I am.
I'm finally who I'm supposed to be. Do you understand? I can't go back.
When people ask me what drew me to Sophia Burset, 8 years ago when we started shooting the first season, it's like, I needed a job. 8 years ago, I didn't have all this luxury of turning things down if I got offered them. I auditioned, and at the time I was in rent arrears in my building. So I had gotten an eviction notice in February of that year, and I got cast in September. And so I was on a payment plan to avoid eviction from my apartment. And I was working, I had a job, I had a restaurant job, but business had been really slow and I was just really behind. And so I was just so happy that I had a job where I was making scale. I was making union scale. I was on a day rate my first season of Orange is the New Black, and I was able to pay my rent, But beyond that, beyond needing a job, when I got the script, particularly for the third episode of the series, which would become Sophia's backstory, I was like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for my whole career. I've been waiting to have an opportunity to sink my teeth into something a story that's really substantial, to show the world that I could really do this. And I was so excited to throw myself utterly and completely into playing that character. And now we're here, 8 years after we started shooting the first season, 6 years after my first Emmy nomination, and I'm nominated again for the last season of Orange is the New Black, and I'm so proud of that.
If they take this away from me, this will all have been for nothing.
Actually, I'm so sorry. We do have someone who wants to join the call for just a second.
Okay. Ah! Have you been listening the whole time, Candis?
Yes.
So the hair. The hair, I said the hair is always flawless. I can't believe you were listening the whole time.
my God. I love you. Are you kidding? That's amazing. You were such an inspiration. And I just have to say, this is your year, girl. This is your year.
Thank
and
you.
Finally, we're going to have a trans woman of color have an Emmy for Best Acting. And I'm so excited about it.
That would be amazing.
We could use some originality, some sass.
When Dirty Sexy Money came onto the air, I had been in acting school for years and doing off-Broadway theater, and I didn't have an agent. I remember I wanted to audition for Carmelita. I couldn't even get in because I didn't have an agent. I was like, and then when it premiered, I was like, this is the moment. I was like, this is the moment. And I've made 500 postcards that said Laverne Cox is the answer to all your transgender acting needs. I got the Ross reports. I sent the postcard to 500 agents, casting directors, and managers. I got 4 meetings. One of them was with my current manager, Paul Haleppo, who was one of the 4 meetings. And I would not have done that mailing, made those postcards, if you hadn't been on television. I wouldn't have believed it was possible if you weren't on television. And so you're the reason I made those 500 postcards. You're the reason I'm with Paul, because you have been on Dirty Sexy Money. When Paul met with me, I think you're part of the reason why Paul met with me and why I was able to get 4 meetings is because you were on television and people were like, well, there's a trans woman on this ABC show now. Let me, maybe there's work out there. Maybe there's an opportunity. And so that led to me even getting meetings. So it's like.
But you were also perfectly poised in the moment to start your career. You weren't trying to make up for lost time. You had studied, you were right there ready for that moment. So
I was ready.
I went into Dirty Sexy completely blindsided. I had no idea it was going to be that huge. It was like, for us girls that wanted to be actors, we just went for any scraps we could get. And so when I got that, Patricia Field, called the producers and said, you should audition a trans woman for this part. And they were like, okay, bring her in. And I auditioned. And
can we pause on this though? How amazing that because Pat Field did the costumes. She famously did costumes for Sex and the City. Because Pat Field was doing the costumes, she said to the casting director, you should have a trans person. What was huge about the moment is that trans people weren't being played by trans people. Trans characters have been on television before, but what was so amazing is that you were an actual trans person playing a trans character. That's huge.
Well, for the first time, it gave me an idea that I could actually be an authentic human being as an actor and be respected and seen by other trans actors on screen for the first time. You know what I mean? Not that there weren't other trans actors. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, I have all my girlfriends, Laverne and Alexandria and all these people were working, but nobody was really given the chance to go to that next level. And it was really important. It's really important because of the question you asked, that people see trans representation done by trans people because of the insurmountable mountain we face in everyday life. When people see me or Laverne going to the Emmys, that is viewed by millions of people, and suddenly they see a name and a face to this trans thing, and they know Laverne and they are comfortable with Laverne, and suddenly the next time they see somebody walking down the street who's trans and they know that that person's trans, they might be an ally to them or protect them from the abuse that trans men and women get on a daily basis in this country. That's why I think it's important.
We're not in prison anymore. We can do whatever we want, be whatever we want.
I think it's also important because like me, watching you on television, it inspires people to believe that they too can live their dreams and be openly trans. That's why it was so important to me. I had never seen this moment ever before. So I did my first movie in 1996. I was a senior at Marymount Manhattan College. I was a dance major there. Did my first movie in 1996. Did little independent films, here and there. Every couple of years, I would book a little something. It never went anywhere. then I went really hard at Susan Batts' studio, and I was studying, like really studying acting and taking it very seriously and doing whatever I could. And I did student films. I was toiling for a really long time trying to have a career as an actor. And like, I remember my brother was like, oh, he with all the love in his heart that he has for me, he's like, you're Black and trans. You're not going to have a mainstream career as an actor. You should do one-woman shows. You should make your own work. You should do, you've been doing a one-woman show for years. But like no one thought it was possible. I would audition for agents and managers and casting directors.
Well, and there's nothing I could do either. Like, I had girlfriends that wanted to get into the business, and I would have other trans girlfriends say, like, how do I get an agent? And I'm like, it's all like just a crapshoot for me right now. I'm getting no auditions after Dirty Sexy. I've been getting offers to play different parts. I tried to pitch a show, but everyone was like, it was too soon kind of situation. So as much as I wanted to try to help out the people around me in my life, other trans folk that wanted to be in the business, I had no control over what was happening to me. You know what I mean? It was
so after this historic moment, you had trouble getting auditions. You were pitching shows and being told no. I started pitching shows in 2000, actually even before Dirty Sexy Money. I started pitching shows that were like sort of reality based and whatnot. I met up with this friend of mine, and eventually years later, with the same group of producers, it became Laverne Cox presents the T Word. But I've been pitching shows since 2006. So it's hard. It's actually still really, really hard.
Hard, yeah.
So I guess I guess it makes me sad in a way thinking about like how hard you had it after Dirty Sexy. And I think it's really, for me, it's important to remember too. I remember sending you probably don't remember this, but I wrote an in memoriam. I think I was writing for Huffington Post at the time, or I posted it somewhere, an in memoriam to Carmelita after she was killed off Dirty Sexy Money. And I sent it to you. And it was huge for me. It was so huge. And it was just so sad to me that she was killed off. And at the same time, if people remember, there was a trans character on Ugly Betty played by Rebecca Romaine. Right. And she was also killed off. Right. So like, and what I attributed that to at the time is that there was nobody trans in the writer's room. So they didn't know where to go with storylines. And so they didn't know what to do. So they just killed us. What did they tell you when you found out that Carmelita would be killed off? Like what was and this is also the year there was a writer's strike too. So like there was a lot going on in the business in 2007.
And the crash.
The stock market crash, the writer's strike. There's a lot going on. But was there a conversation with you ahead of time before they said, did they call you in and say we're killing off Carmelita?
Well, they had called me and saying that they were going to add to my role. And then got a new showrunner, and suddenly I was getting killed off. So, I don't mean to start rumors, but I really, being a trans woman, you just know that feelings when people are doing something to you, especially in this industry. So I knew that this person was transphobic, and they were kind of saying to everyone, Candis is the reason why the show is not doing well, even though there was a writer's strike and the stock market crashed. And so I think that was kind of like, let's just see what sticks. You know what I mean? Let's kill Carmelita.
That breaks my heart to hear that. You literally the only reason I ended up loving the show, but you're the reason I started watching it.
But I have to say, the day that was my last scene, I finished the scene and it was filmed on Paramount Lot, and it was just like a magic, and I walked out and everyone in the cast and crew, all the writers, everyone was standing there with a huge cake with Donald and Billy and Lucy at that time she was on it, and they thanked me for being a part of the show, and all gave me hugs, so it was really kind of an amazing moment, to end.
I'm gagging. Can I just one last thing? When Carmelita, so there's a scene, Patrick was finally going to, he was state senator, and there was a press conference, and he was finally going to come out and say, I'm in love with Carmelita, and he was finally going to introduce her to the world and say, this is the woman that I love. And in that moment, she comes out and you're in this gorgeous coat, you look flawless. Killed you. I was so devastated. I know it's a TV show, but I was so devastated. I was,
in a flashback. In a flashback.
yeah.
But anyways.
It was a lot. I was destroyed. I mean, I really was. I mean, I know I was like already a full adult woman, but it was just, I was destroyed. I really was. I'm writing in memoriams to Carmelita. Like, you know, all these years later, I'm still talking about Carmelita. It changed my life. It really did. And so with the brilliance of Pat Field, of like the folks who cast you, and then what you gave to the performance, that moment, that scene that there's always played, because I watched all the interviews too. There's always interviews with you when you were like, they would say the scene, Mr. Darling, nothing's impossible. My life is, you know, some line like that. And you look so, you're in the car with him and you just look so gorgeous. And it's so empowering and beautiful. It was everything. It still is. It still is. So you've done something, like, just know, because I know there's still struggles, but know that you've done something that has changed the world and it's touched so many people. And that is the thing as artists that we all want to do, is we want to touch people. You've already done that like 6 times over. Thank you, Candis.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.